my friends, how you doing today? I am thrilled to have you here. This video is going to be all about e.l.f., a brand that I find to be one of the more intriguing brands on the market. It actually was my very first video on this channel. We're talking like 11 or so years ago, more than 11 years ago. My first video was a review on e.l.f. brushes. Now I've since repurchased these because I wanted to see if the quality has changed, and I have purchased a lot of stuff from e.l.f. that is either $1 or $2 because I want to see if this brand, still at its roots, at its core, has some good products, because it all started with $1. Do we remember that? Do we remember that that was the buzz and that was what really put e.l.f. on the map, that everything they were selling was $1? And that was really exciting. And then they've grown and they've expanded. There was the studio line, and now we're seeing a lot of products that are, I would say, like an average drugstore cost. Looking through their website, about $6 on average, I would guess, is like an average cost of an e.l.f. product these days. And so I really wanted to go back and see, are they even selling $1 or $2 things now? And I looked through the website, yep, they sure enough are. And I think I can do a full face with it and just chat with you about the quality of these things. I think nearly everything is either something I have recently used or at some point in time have used before. I actually don't think any of this stuff is going to be 100% new to me, maybe a couple shades here or there, but I just thought it would be really fun to try to put together the full face and see how it goes. So first things first, I got the Cover Everything concealer. I remember trying this quite a long time ago, but I got it in the shade Light, and this is a $2 product. Something you notice about the $1 and $2 products is the packaging is very like bare bones. I wouldn't call it flimsy because it doesn't seem flimsy, but it's just, I don't know, less than what they're doing with the studio line products. So this concealer, gotta be honest with you, smells exactly like a Crayola crayon. So not the most appealing thing, but I am going to see if it will cover everything as it says. The reason why you're seeing me go in straight with concealer and not a foundation is because they did not have a $1 or $2 foundation. So we're just gonna try to keep it to the things that are really inexpensive, and I don't have necessarily a great brush from their $1 brush line that would be, I think, ideal for concealer, so I am just going to be patting this on with my finger, which I think is going to be good for this consistency of product. It's very creamy. It's not too thick though. And as you can see, it is working a little magic around those dark circles. It has maybe just the teeniest bit of a peachy tone in it, actually. And thank goodness I'm not continuing to smell the crayon smell once it's on my skin. But I would love to know from those of you who were familiar with e.l.f. back when it was a brand of only $1 items, like what products were you buying at that time? What really impressed you? I remember, you know, loading up on different lip products, the brushes, of course. I thought getting a $1 brush was just like, wow. Now we do have websites like, you know, Shop Miss A, and they'll sell a great deal of different items for $1. But I just kind of am interested in e.l.f. because they're a brand that has kind of taken part of itself and really evolved. And I wanted to see if the $1 stuff and the $2 stuff that they are still selling has kind of evolved with it, and just see whether it's decent stuff too. Okay, I'm building up my coverage a little bit with that. And I'm not mad at that concealer really on the under eye. Their $5 camo concealer is outstanding, by the way. And you heard me talking about that. What video was it? The least expensive, best coverage products you can find. I really talked a lot about the camo concealer if you're interested in that. Get a little blemish down here. Building up a little bit right in here for some brightness. I'm kind of loving the coverage level, actually. It's doing pretty great on the under eye. Better than expected. I mean, I don't have any sort of foundation on to help this out. Okie dokie. Next, we're going to do a little powder. I believe this was a $2 powder called Prime and Stay Finishing Powder. And I can't remember if this is something I've tried or not, but the texture is very nice, and I think it's the kind of thing that's going to claim to be a bit of a translucent powder. And then I do have this powder brush. Now, the powder brush is a lot smaller than it used to be. I remember this being a really full brush, but it also seems a lot softer than it used to be. All the brushes do, and a really nice even cut to it. No abnormalities on any of these brushes, which I found to be impressive. Tapping off a little extra there. Really wants to pick up a lot when you dip it in. And I'm going to set my under eye. Not really changing my coverage too much, but is really mattifying me. I'll just blend this in all over. It doesn't even really look too heavy or dry, just like looking at the way it is on my nose. That's kind of the revealing spot, I feel like, for the look of heaviness or any sort of texture that a makeup product's gonna give me. Okay, I have a bronzer, and again, you're gonna notice a trend here with these $2 little face products. They're just in these small compacts, and I have this one called Sun Kissed. It seems like there wasn't a lot of availability where the bronzers were concerned. I was like, I'm not sure if this is my shade. I'm gonna continue using that powder brush, and we'll see if we can make it show. It just seems a little light to me. The finish of it would appear to be kind of nice, like sort of a satin finish, but it's just not coming through a whole lot on my skin. Let's see if the cheekbone area can make it appear. Sometimes just the shadow of that area, contour type products will show a bit more. I think we hit kind of a dud with that one shade-wise. Maybe fair skin would enjoy that more, but I'm kind of meh. I do have a pretty looking blush that I got in a pretty deep shade. It's called Brick Red. It does appear to have a bit of maybe a subtle satin finish, but I feel like this is going to be super intense. I'm going to need to be very, very careful. So I'm going to dab gently in, tap off my excess, tap it off on my hand. My assumption with this shade was that I'm gonna go deeper because I bet these blushes aren't very pigmented. But actually they're really pigmented. I mean, look, I tap my finger at it and it's like, wow, there's a lot of color there. But I'm just trying to build up slowly. It's really hard to argue with this. You know, a pigmented blush at $2, really rosy, would probably end up working on a lot of skin tones. Not mad at that. Then friends, I know this is going to be shocking, but I have a highlight that's in the very same packaging here. I chose the one called White Pearl. It actually looks like kind of a soft, buttery sort of shade, and I think this might be decent for us. I'm going to use this slightly smaller brush called the bronzing brush. It's at a little bit of an angle, but as you can see, it's not very full, and I feel like it might be really good for a highlight. So we're just going to go ahead and pop this on here. Okay, not too shabby on that highlight. I mean, it's not really giving me major Becca vibes, but it's certainly restoring the glow in my skin, I can tell you that much. I think that's pretty. Okay, there's our complexion makeup here. Nothing was over $2. Even though the concealer was off-putting at first with the scent, the coverage was actually pretty good. The texture of it too, to feel it. It was a pretty rich, creamy concealer. It wasn't one of those that just felt greasy or like I wasn't able to pick up enough product to actually cover on the skin. So it covered decently well. The setting powder, I think it accomplished the goal of just mattifying, but it wasn't really adding much coverage. I could see that looking a little chalky on a skin tone that's maybe too dark because a lot of product did want to come off on my brush. The bronzer, just not quite dark enough in this Sun-Kissed shade, but maybe they do have a shade that'll come into stock that'll be a little bit deeper. Brick Red blush, that really came to play, and I think the White Pearl highlight was pretty impressive too. We're gonna move on to what is maybe one of my most loved, cheapest products from e.l.f., and it's the brow pencil. And I got this, I ordered a new one in the shade Dark Brown, but I gotta tell you, it looks downright black. I'm not sure what's going on. It looks way darker than my other ones used to. Maybe my eyes are just playing tricks on me, but I'm gonna go with it. I'm just gonna go ahead and use it. But it's a great, great brow product. It's $2. I've talked about it a lot if it sounds familiar on my channel. I mean, I think you can round this up at Walmart or wherever. It's got the little spoolie on the one end, and the size of it, it's not gonna be duping like a Brow Wiz or one of those really skinny pencils. It's a little bit larger tip than that, but it isn't formed or shaped in any specific way, so it's not going to be one of those really thick ones. I honestly feel like this is a darker pencil than what I'm used to when I get dark brown, but it says dark brown, deep brown, but I feel like I can get through my brows very quickly with this. I've used this product a lot. I also just love the consistency of the pencil. It's not too dry. You're not working hard to make it show up in your brows, but it's not gooping them either. How many times have I referred to something gooping my brows, you know? I feel like I say that word a lot. It's very non-technical, but it's the truth of what will happen with some brow products that are too soft. I think that's about as good as we're gonna get for right now. And I repurchased this e.l.f. lash and brow stuff because I remember using this back in the day, and it's one of the cheapest things on e.l.f.'s site. And it's a decent little brow gel. Don't overlook this. This may be another one of the things that shows up. Like, I know Walmart's got a selection of some pretty cheap e.l.f. stuff, and probably some other stores too. But this little gel is kind of neat. Perk up those brows. Now, I don't recall seeing or buying an eye primer in this little haul, so I think I'm going to just go back to my concealer, and I'll use this kind of as maybe an eye base. I think it'll work. It's not too oily. I think it'll certainly give me the neutralization of my lids that I want. And then I got a couple of their $2 eyeshadow quads. One is Natural Matte and one is Blushing Beauty. I've had several of these different quads over time. Do you remember those palettes that e.l.f. had early on where you could like make your own? Like a refillable quad and you could put stuff inside. It was one of the first things they did. But somewhere along the line they moved to this style of quad. And I think I'll try to just work with the matte quad mostly here. I have a brush called Blending Eye Brush, and again, I'm much more impressed with these brushes than I used to be. And I think there was even a time where certain ones were really good, but then you'd kind of like randomly see one here or there, or for whatever reason I get sent one and I'd think, that's not really that impressive. But these all seem like a new level of softness on these $1 brushes. I'm gonna use the shade labeled Lid, and we're gonna get some of this into my crease here. So yeah, I'll only be using e.l.f. brushes for this look. Okay, that shade's pretty light. We may actually need to go to the shade labeled Crease. Crease is just one notch down there. Okay, getting a little soft, neutral crease color. Take it on in. This brush just feels so soft. Again, this is the blending eye brush that I'm using. And if you watch a lot of my videos, you probably know that I'm a big fan of several of the studio brushes. The complexion brush, the small tapered brush, and the blush brush are like my face trifecta. I mean, they're fantastic. But I may have to start working some of these $1 brushes into my eye looks more. This flat brush, this is called the Eyeshadow brush. It's just a little different shape than I remember it being from back in the day. Like, I used that brush quite a bit. Maybe just a slight bit less taper down the sides, but we're using the lightest color up under the brow. I'll also put some of that base shade just right in here on my lid space. It seems to be applying it okay, but it just like really picks up more toward the tip and not so much down the side of the brush. And then we're going to do some of this shade called Line. And this looks like a, mix of like charcoal and black. We'll get this kind of on the outer lid. Not really having a hard time blending these, which is nice to see. Then guys, I have an even smaller brush than what I first went to my crease with, although they are kind of like similar sizes, but this one's clearly, I think, a little bit smaller. This is called the Eye Crease brush. I know I've used and liked this before, but again, every brush just seems a little bit different than what I remember. I'm gonna go into that line shade and the crease shade, both of them, and just kind of help this shade into the crease a little bit. This is shaping up to be a decent little cool toned eyeshadow quad, my friends. And look at the brushes we're using with it. I mean, goodness gracious. This came together pretty dang effortlessly. Now I'm going to use that first brush that I used in my crease. I think I'm going to combine the base and lid colors and just use that over the edge. Just kind of a little transition slash blending help there. That's where your shade labeled Lid is really going to come in handy. For my skin tone, it wasn't quite enough to put contrast in my crease, but it'll help blend things back into my skin tone, I think. Another eye brush here, guys, a little one called Smudge Brush. It's just like a shortened version of what I was using on the lid. I'm going to take our little smudgy one and go into crease. Oh, I like that. I like that shape and thickness of brush. It's really fitting that lower lash line nicely. Very cool. All right, guys, there's our little shadow look, our little cool smoky eye. I think the only brush that I have here that you have not seen me use, I picked up the Lash and Brow Wand. It's just a little spoolie. If anybody wants an individual, like $1 spoolie. They have something, and I remember using this way back in the day. I think it's called like an eye brightener. It's a little pencil, it's white, and it's kind of like a little bit pearly, and you're supposed to be able to use this like an inner rim highlight. Let's see if it works, if it kind of clings in there. Because you know this is a step I love to take with my Wet n Wild Ultimate Brow Highlight. I'm gonna let it sit there. It didn't really transfer on great that first go round, but sometimes when you go back and add just a little more on top, then it all clings. Go back. Not seeing a lot out of this, honestly. Kind of a dud there. Might be something you could like actually draw on your skin for a highlighted look, but not really clinging to my inner rim. That was $1, by the way. I got a $1 pencil liner and a $2 liquid liner. Pencil liner also has that little built-in sharpener in the cap, and then the liquid liner I have in the shade Jet Black. I think I'm gonna use a little of the liquid liner, actually. Nice, really skinny brush there. And we'll just see. It's going on pretty opaque, which a lot of liners can do that at the get-go. I think the question is, will it wear like a long-wearing liner or will it smudge? Absolutely no complaints about the way that went on, and also the darkness level of it. It's just, you know, again, will it stay? Now, I have never really been impressed by e.l.f.'s mascaras, but yet here I am repurchasing the one called Volumizing and Defining. Pretty sure I've had this in the past, but like I said, the brand seems to evolve itself. It seems to find ways to improve. So I'm gonna pop this on. Sorry about my lash curler. That's the only non-e.l.f. thing I think that I'll have used in this video. Brush is a very traditional looking brush, although I don't remember it being quite so tapered down at the tip. That kind of oval shape is nice to see. And yeah, this is kind of feeling I'm having some flashbacks. It doesn't deposit a lot on your lashes, so I guess it's good to not see clumping, but it's looking real natural. I'm gonna have to go back and do multiple coats, I think. Just had to make a little more space on my memory card, and now it's time for coat 2. It's lengthening all right. Maybe the thickness comes in coat 3. It's almost like this mascara has to prime itself with coat 1. Coat 2, it builds on itself, and then now I'm starting to maybe see a little of the thickness I was hoping for. So the mascara, I really tried my best with it. I feel like I kind of maxed out at length after about 2 coats, but then started to build some thickness as I kept applying. But it just took a lot of time, a lot of energy, and I'm not really confident enough in this stuff to put it on the lower lashes. And you really start to realize, like, oh my gosh, when you put on It Cosmetics Superhero, that builds up so fast. It just makes everything go by so much quicker, and I couldn't believe how much time I spent just on mascara there. Okay, lip products. I've got a couple different ones here. One is a lipstick I know I've used before. It's the Essential Lipstick in the shade Classy, and then the Luscious liquid lipstick called Ruby Slipper. I know I've had something in a shade called Ruby Slipper. It's kind of a rosy shade with a little golden shimmer. Remember when they used to have Hyper Shine where it clicked up through the brush tip? This is the kind that clicks up through like a little fuzzy sort of almost doe foot looking thing. So I think I'll start with the lipstick. The face really needs some life here. This seems a little, I remembered it being more nude than this. Smells kind of good. Wow, really? Smells kind of like strawberries or something. But I think they only had like a couple options for this $1 lipstick. Yeah. I swear it used to be a more muted pink than that. I want to see Ruby Slipper come to play. Okay. Good texture. I could get on board with that, and I could wear that quite often. It feels nice. There's quite a thickness to it. Not really sticky, but a little bit of a thickness and a slight bit of mintiness, maybe a little minty flavor as well. I'm trying to perk up these lashes a little bit now that they still feel like they're drying. So sometimes that's a point where you can kind of like blink down onto them and get a little more curl back in them. I had rubbed my nose a little bit and I felt like I rubbed off a little bit of my powder or my concealer or whatever. So there's a little powder. I think I want a little more blush. Just perk up that skin a little bit because the bronzer really wasn't doing much for us. And again, with a little more highlight. Kind of like that highlight. So what's the takeaway here? I feel like the brushes overall might have been the most impressive thing here, considering they were $1. The feel of them has really improved. The softness and like the consistency of the cut, it looks so much better than it used to. This little angled brush, you might come up with some uses for that, but I feel like this is actually a pretty decent size. The powder brush, they've downsized it, and that's a nice size actually for blush. And then as far as these eye brushes go, spoolie, of course, if you need a spoolie, that's fine. But this little crease brush, not oversized, really fit my crease well. And then this one in the outer corner, my goodness, the eye crease brush, those were great. The one for packing shadow on the lid, not bad, like got the job done, but I wish it was a bit more tapered, and I do really like that smudge brush. If you are looking for a good flat brush from e.l.f., try the one called Flat Eyeshadow Brush. It's one of the black ones. Really nice flat brush. And of course, you know how I feel about the studio brushes that I mentioned earlier. Love some of their studio brushes. Also, they make a great $2 eyebrow product. And really, I was pretty impressed by this little matte quad. I thought those shades blended well. I thought they were pigmented enough. Talk about just a little quad of basics and maybe even a shade or two in there that could work in someone's brows. I mean, I'm definitely not complaining. I didn't even use an actual eye primer underneath. Nothing wrong with this gel for $2. I mean, it's fine. And my favorite face products, I think, were probably the blush and the highlight. Whether these are $2 or not, they performed really well. The powder is kind of a take it or leave it. I think they've got a little bit better textured powder actually for $3 from their studio line. It's like their translucent matte powder. I remember using that a lot years ago. Hit pan on it, used it up. Gosh, this lip gloss is really sweet, by the way. But this does mattify. The bronzer was not bronze enough. Say what you want about the smell of this concealer, but it did do the job basically as far as really giving me some coverage and making me come away from this look feeling like I'm not scared to wear it out of the house, you know, and it didn't have any foundation helping it out. That being said, for $3, they have a little palette of concealers that are this creamy texture. I picked that up and I think I may work it into a future video. The only thing that seemed like a true major dud to me, well, other than this lipstick, because this, if you know the shade Classy from way back when, I swear this used to be more of a nude pink and now it's like a bubblegum bright pink. I do like this Ruby Slippers gloss, however. But I was gonna say the only real dud I think is just the mascara, just because, you know, yeah, it's there, but it took quite a long time to build that stuff up. And it still doesn't look like that much on my eyes. Talking about the concealer though, if you wanna spend $5 on a concealer, e.l.f.'s Camo Concealer, which is packaged, you know, with the twist off doe foot applicator, that stuff is true full coverage in a concealer. But I would say I came out with a lot more hits than misses in this video and a lot more things that I feel actually pretty strongly about, like the brushes, than I really expected to. I was thinking there would be more kind of duds and I end up coming away with a look that I'm actually kind of proud of. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments section what's the best, cheapest thing from e.l.f. that you've ever tried, and I will talk to you again very soon. Bye.